I do not mute my husband at all. I think I'll even find it funny. He'll even laugh at me if I try to do it. But at the same time, I have to kneel down to other key people around us.
Yes.
So it's all about emotional and social challenges to being very aware of the do's and the don'ts, like in any culture. Oh, no, it was, yeah.
Sorry, afternoon, my name is Yusuf. If I get correctly, Lewe Fumbe. I think I said correctly. I don't have a lot to say, but today I actually learned that Ugandans or Ugandan people are very preservative people, you know, not only in culture but in biodiversity of animals and etc. Right? My one question is, I heard somebody say that culture can actually be, what can I say, upgraded to be suited to the modern lifestyle, right? What's your take on that, and why do you feel that way? Do you feel that culture should actually be upgraded to suit the modern lifestyle or not, and why?
No, I don't know if it was actually put that way. However, as we know that culture evolves, there are a number of things that used to happen a long time ago that cannot happen today, are not practical. And at the time, it was the most, during that time, that given the circumstances, that's what happened. Now, as time goes on, some things do actually change. And like at the foundation, we normally say that we promote positive culture. So in other words, there is negative. There are still many, not just African, other places where there are still negative cultural practices that we're trying to discourage. So for example, like there was a culture of leaving girls behind, marrying them early. All that were things that we're trying to discourage. There was what they call in some ethnic groups female genital mutilation, or that's a kind of female in, for example, in Eastern Uganda and other places. So that there were cultural practices that are negative, and we're trying to discourage that. So we promote the positive cultural practices that we feel are they do benefit. So again, it's also this kind of balance it, trying to say, okay, there are good cultural practices that we should keep on, but in light of what's happening, the globalization, like all that is happening, then we have to find a way of how to balance it. And some of you have actually gone away from your native countries, don't know anything, no language, nothing. Yet there's some things, and we carry these, for example, through what we call the Ubuntu lab. And if a person lived that way, and that is very cultural actually. For example, it was always about in Uganda, you want to way back to the culture. Do you have integrity? Are you caring? Are you hardworking? Are you just naturally a good person? So that is something that people don't really care about anymore. So it was very, it was a matter of fact that this is how things were. This is how we were brought up, but it doesn't happen anymore. So we're saying that we need to really bring that up and try to tell the generations of today that are growing up with this whole world of social media that, you see, and as much as we need to go ahead, we know we cannot say we don't take all the technology, we will, but how do we balance it with our cultural values that are so important and vital to the growth and to the progress of our countries? If we're to move ahead, this is what has to happen. Look at the countries in Asia that have moved ahead, that are developed, like Japan, China. They are very much, they're very traditional. They've taken on, they're modernized, they're very high tech, but at the same time, they are very cultural. They're all, you'll never find a Chinese, no matter where they go, who doesn't know their language. They still speak Chinese. the Indians speak Indian no matter where they are, and probably never even lived in India. They speak the Indian languages and all that. No, they've stuck to those things and they're extremely developed. They haven't, this is why we're saying that your language is important, because you cannot be there and say, okay, I only speak English and that's it. English is good, but then where are you from? Okay, and it doesn't matter, like I was talking about yesterday. You may have parents who have different heritages. Learn one of the languages, or even both of them. At least you know where your roots are, to have some kind of identity. Because they do, and it doesn't keep you behind at all. That if you keep, if you do stick to your cultural norms, respect your elders, and do all these things, it does not keep you backwards at all. I went to Thailand, and they are extremely traditional, but yet extremely developed at the same time. They do all the respect for the elders. They do the way they greet, the way they relate to each other, all that.
I'm Masuna Matagurimo from the Leader clan, and yeah, we learned about a lot of naming our aunts from our mom's side and our dad's side. And growing up, my father's always told me stories about how people would give them names and what the names mean. Excuse me. And my question is, forgive my ignorance if it is, but may I ask, what is your Uganda name? Yes, Navigator is the Uganda name or the title.
Navigator is the title.
Yes.
My Uganda name is Lady Ramusu.
And do you have a daughter?
Oh, Lady Ramusu.
Oh, okay. Lila Lamanzi. Yeah. I have no question.
When did I see them?
Bubu. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm John Benjamin, Casey Bureau for Kenya. From the Ngari tribe. I think for me, having grown up for pretty much my whole life here in South Africa, I think there were a lot of challenges. First of all, adapting to the South African culture. Obviously, you have to become successful in your life. You can't blindly just take your parents' culture or where you're from and impose it on the current culture. And that has brought a lot of challenges because obviously as you're growing up, you learn how to incorporate the norms of your current environment. And one of the biggest setbacks is there are some points where you have to say your parents or the Ugandan community will come and enforce certain sort of traditions or set ways upon you. And you're faced with a conflict because if you look at your general environment and how they're growing and where you are, it leaves you in a very sort of lost arena. And I think coming here, there's been a lot of things that have been told that you must do, but you actually understand the reason why. And for me, that's what I would like to gain from this. One of the best things is learning about paternal and maternal structures, and that in the Western world, we base it on age, whereas here, it's pretty much based on the male and the female side of the family. One of the things I've taken from there. Yeah, I think it is just a process of learning.
Yeah.
And more than that, learning, because the truth is you cannot just go back to what the culture is in Uganda and expect us to just follow it. That is the truth. What we do need to realize is that we, moving forward, as you have said, cultures must evolve. How are we, who have learned from this side, how are we going to incorporate what we are proud of our heritage into moving forward, whether we remain here as a community or whether we return back to Uganda? And for me, that's the most important thing.
But you know what? One thing I've realized is that sometimes when you're much young, you don't see it. But from what I have seen from, and I'll give you an example of my sister who's in her 30s and she was born, raised in the United States. And so when she grew up, she used to tell my mom that, because when with my mom, we speak Luganda, she speaks Luganda, because I pretty much grew up in Uganda. I went to the US later on, and so would speak Luganda, but she would always speak to her in English. So it didn't really matter to her at that point, but afterwards, now she comes to Uganda sometimes, and we're all sitting around speaking at Uganda. And she was saying that, why do, she literally blames her for not speaking to her in Uganda, for not teaching her language. But then she's not the only person that I've actually heard or seen who look back. They look back at them and say, I wish I knew another language besides English. And I think one of the people actually was from here in South Africa who was extremely upset with the parents for not letting them, for not letting him or encouraging him to learn the language. So it's now they seem okay. It may look like it's very easy, get into the community. But the other thing is that today it's you can Google, you can go on Google and get all these and teach yourself, and learn. And Luganda actually one of those, you can get Google in Luganda. You go to Google to Uganda and to just give you Google. And there are also there's a literature, books, there, YouTube, all that. So you can really go out there and as you say, it's a learning process and teach yourself. The same way that you strive to learn other languages like Spanish and French. Because I see people just go out of their way to learn those languages. So I think you all should also do the same thing, because even if there's no Ekisaakate being held here and no Luganda lessons, you can actually teach yourself. Teach yourselves to speak. It's lost.
Okay, I'm gonna just really hard out there from
You're where? From what clan?
So, like, in my situation, like, I'm born and raised in South Africa, so, like, I've got South African home. So, like, with me, I was, like, more focused to, like, the South African cultural, like, kind of thing instead of, like, Ugandan. So, like, I didn't, like, really think it was important to, like, learn my dad's, like, culture and everything until, like, I get, like, this functions like Banavachitu, like the children, like they know like almost like their cultures, how they built up and everything. Now with me it's like South Africa and everything. So like I get like I'm gonna say cut off in that situation. Everyone keeps on telling me to actually learn the language, but they in a way I haven't grown up speaking Luganda. I was more English speaking and like the other South African languages speaking and stuff. So like, yeah, I just wanted like to know more about the culture, the Ghanaian culture and everything.
I'm very proud of South Africans here because they speak their language, they know Zulu, so they know all so they do. Most of them they speak English and their language, don't they? Yeah. So I mean, at least you're halfway, you're doing well. Now you can learn that. Yeah.
Amanya gange nze nyongere ku Makanga nanzalibwa mu kyalo ky'Eggomba Rwanda era nga n'ebya n'ebinnakinsimbi akavuyo ku ngufu sibuka mu lulimi lwa Lumbe Musolo omukulu wa Kasolya ekisemiro ekigenze omukulu w'essiga Kadduwani ogwo mutuba gwaffe omutuba gwaffe then omubala gwaffe gwali bwafunyabuuse era nga nyini olukulwa Sejjongwe Sagala
Benjamin's World. He's the one you only spoke yesterday, right?
No.
That's a different Benjamin. Okay. Can we ask more personal questions? I don't know how much time we have. Did you say personal? Personal, but just general questions. How you got into the royal family? I married a Kabaka. It was just about marriage. So you don't have to have certain, you don't have to be from a royal family to marry. No, in Buganda, one Kabaka was Uganda Kingdom, so to speak. Kabaka can marry from any clan, doesn't have to be from the royal family. As a matter of fact, I don't think they can even marry from the royal family. So you can marry from any of the 52 clans. Yeah.
I just want to ask, how's the transition moving into the royal family?
No, but you know, it was quite, because I had a lot of support from people, and although at that time I used to live in the United States, so but I also was back and forth, you know, in between, so it wasn't too far away, and then family, friends, and just the cousins in general. So it wasn't as difficult as I expected it to be.
My question is, looking at the, let's say, the course of your reign, do you think that you were, a born leader, or that you have gained skills along the way and learned how to improve, let's say, your leadership and how you lead?
Actually, what I can say about that is that there are a number of things that I did before I became Naragirika, which have actually helped me in this role. I did them without really knowing it, because it's not something that I read told I wanted to be Naragirika. It's not something that I even thought about. But my education, my experiences, my work, all that somehow work together, and it's what I've used to help me to be able to do what I have done. So it's helped me without really knowing it. I didn't prepare for it.
Being a queen is such an honorable role. I would love to know who inspires you. Who do you look up to? Do you have anyone?
Well, I grew up with my grandparents, and I can say that there was such a force in my life, and growing up around so many other, it was a big family, lots of children and grandchildren, but they were very much, they're very hardworking, very giving, and it was just, I think, they pretty much inspired me in so many ways.
If you could describe yourself in 5 words, what would those be?
Wow.
Uganda, but on occasion, I had gone to my young brothers celebrating the swimming gala, and they hosted the Sangariambogo. And to my surprise, the lady was calling her Buffy. She's a girl, and the lady was saying Buffy.
Yes?
Yes?
It was calling
Sangariambogo
Buffy.
Yes.
Oh.
And I was shocked. She's a girl, and they're calling her Buffy.
Maybe Sebo. You said Sebo?
Oh yes, Sebo. Yes, Sebo, yes. But they use the male title to describe a female. You know, it was shocking.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Take it up.
Okay. In Uganda, we talked about salutations earlier on. And in Uganda, the way we greet the royal family is much, much different from the way we greet or we address the common, people. We use, the princess are addressed as Sir, Sebo, because of the fact that they are from the royal family. And this, in a way, identifies them from, or sets them apart from any other girl. It's again a sign of respect. One of the key things we've been talking about as one of the Buntubulam attributes is respect. So out of respect, they are addressed as Sebo. And it would not be proper to greet a princess and you say, Wasuzotiano Nyabu, because of the fact that she is a princess. You'd say, Wasuzotiano Sebo. Okay? Out of respect. Have I looked at it? I think that's basically it.
Okay, like even what's the criteria? Because my dad loves the culture so much. So we visited some. I think she's the sister to the king. And again, they were calling her still Sebo.
Yes, I said anybody from the royal family is addressed as Sebo, even if it's a lady. Okay? Anybody from the royal family is Sebo. So you will not find a lady being addressed as Nyabo from the royal family.
Maybe you may, in the other way of expressing that, you may not necessarily say Sebo, but Mumbeja, oba Umulangira, or Mumbeja oba Umulangira, that title, that royal title may follow, in order not to use the other one. And that's what will be common. But again, the Sebo also remains with that close royal family. Not the whole of clan, not the whole clan, but that close royal family.
I've got one question.
Okay, so let's do just one last question because we want to start doing group photos. So what's going to happen is we'll take your question as the last one, and then we'll escort Her Royal Highness, where the parents will also be waiting. We'll do quick group photos and then allow her to leave. Okay, so we'll do a quick one here and then go.
Yes, I really do.
I wanted to know, I recently found out that my grandfather was the Kaganda, James Lutaya was the Kaganda, and I don't understand that. Does it make my mother a princess? Or, because they were saying that she could have some royal blood, so to speak, because my grandfather's grandfather or father was also a Kaganda to the Baganda kingdom. So I just wanted to find out, like, how does one become royal or...
The Kaganda family is quite big and it's
Yeah.
very significant in Uganda. I would like to really tell a story.
Was a chief.
Yes.
Yeah, you probably
The Kaganda family, the Kaganda himself was a chief, but and a very close family to the king of that time. And then the other generations that follow also take that pride, but not necessarily being royals, but they were.
He owns the whole island, Kalangala.
Yes.
Yeah, they were from Kalangala. Actually, Sese Island.
Mukasa.
From Bukasa Island.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's so Uganda's territory.
Yes.
Or was.
Okay, so let's organize. Pardon?
Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for coming all this way here. I think this is a really life-changing for a lot of us born here, not knowing a lot about our culture. We appreciate this program, and thank you for answering our questions. I think you certainly learned a lot.
Mpozi muganda wange abantu bagenda kuba nga bafuna ebifaananyi ne maama n'abagereka Sylvia bagenda naye ng'oli butereevu ku African Union Television weekuumire ku mikutu gy'abasajja bakigenda mu maaso nga tukikutuusaako weekuumire ku African Union Television. Oweekitiibwa Kabuuza Mukasa mulabye nga addamu ebibuuzo naye ng'ali ku kamera. Shafik Sembatya waali nange wagabikiza Miles KSA Saugan naye nga made in Uganda. Kino kikwasaganya okulaba nga Ekisaakate yoyo Oweekitiibwa Kabuuza Mukasa ali omu ku bali mu Nabagereka Development Fund n'abamu ku bakungu abalimu bagenda mabega wa maama n'abagereka Sylvia Nagenda okulaba nga bafuna ebifaananyi nakyo kigibe nga kigenze mu history okulaba nga bakola ebyafaayo. Nyamba bambi obeere ku kamera muddize nambizi sorry ambizi okitegeera muganda wange funa gojuwa naawe ekyo kite funa gojuwa muganda wange embeera y'obudde nga bweyimiridde ezaako okulaba nga kintu kikwasaganya ng'embeera y'obudde bweyimiridde ya record video.
Those guys making a photo.
It's supposed to be down. See? Yeah.
Okay, is that everybody?
It's fine.
It's recording.
Muganda wange mpozi bagenza okulaba nga bafuna ekifaananyi ewa maama Abasaakate bonna ab'emyaka 18 mpaka ku 35 nga Ekisaakate ekisembayo.
For them to take the photo, I'm going to have to stand a bit further back when I do mine so they can finish first.
Baabo bonna Ekisaakate bagezaako okulaba nga bafuna ebifaananyi ne maama era nga kali akalombolombo batudde wansi olaba muli emabega ngera bwe kiri ekitiibwa mu Bwakabaka bwa Buganda. Nagamba Buganda nnene eri mu nsi yonna abantu ba Ssaabasajja bonna babeerayo n'abasomesa n'Abasaakate bonna n'omukungu wa Ssaabasajja musajja South Africa Dr. Lumu naye waali okulaba nga agezaako okulaga abantu ba Ssaabasajja maama n'abagereka.
Can I ask you gentlemen to move me a little bit this way? If I can now ask everybody to look to this side and this side. And the last one.
Essanyu lingi nnyo ng'Abasaakate bayiga obuwangwa bwabwe. Alina muganda ekyokola kyamaanyi okulaba ng'ogyekuumirako. Muganda ntumira ku bantu namusobya Jeni ng'oliiraaka we bali kulaba, Brenda we bali kulaba, Okerene we bali kulaba, Kintu Ibrahim behind you Kumalo, how are you? Zali Jacobo, Nalongo Sofia Kalwana.
What does it say?
Just put your Nabagereka.
Nelsoni n'Abadimax muli bangi nnyo bannaye Kausha Deolin Chocolate Lastamos bangi naye nga mbeera bwetyo bweyimiridde. Ekisaakate nagambye kiyagenda maaso neera neera gwe atanaleeta mwana muleete. Mpozi kaŋŋambe Oweekiti.
Oh,
No.
that's a nice one.
It is terrible.
This is so versatile. Tosobola kudimama tofamudde mabega.
Munasoma. Soko nyinyola abantu mukulu Jacobo. Nyinyola abantu.
Oh, sorry.
Ekisaakate.
Mulongo mungi nnyo.
Nnyo. Bali basanyufu nnyo tumalirize.
Katumale kino tulabe oba anasobola okubeerako n'obuuza obutono ne bwadda. Naye katumale wano.
Ndabona kutegeeza. How are you? Yeah, say hi to people who are watching Ekisaakate and who are you just tell them.
I'm Billy Joseph.
So, mukulu.
Yes.
Mommy.
We're drowning in selfies,
Too much out. Can you get it?
Oh, shall we? Because the other guys are also waiting.
naye nga buuza ku bantu jja ku osali buuza ku bantu bako kyobagamba
naye mbalamusizza mwonna nabuli wano tuli ku Kisaakate amannya gange nze Jacobo Sali tuli basanyufu nnyo nti maama waffe yazze otulabako wano e South Africa era tuli ku Kisaakate waliwo bingi bye tuyize era tukyayiga naye era bwe tuva kati ku ssaawa zino tubadde mu session emu nga ayigiriza abakulukuluko
ate bayigiriza Abasaakate
ekyokukola ennono zaffe betulina okumanya nga tuli n'abazadde baffe era tukyayiga era twebaza nnyo abamuleese maama waffe era ndowooza tujja kuleeta ne baganda baffe babeere mu Kisaakate bebali nnyo.
Okay, muganda mwe yabadde Jacobo. Nina soko obuze ku bantu.
What do I say?
Which people tell them in Uganda kola ki wano mu Kisaakate?
I'm not gonna say shit when I'm not ready to say shit.
Say anything. This is not shit. Come on.
Okay, so I'm happy to be here in Ekisaakate because like we learn a lot about
Soko yogeremuko ku Luganda for Oluzungu lwatutamyetamye.
Okay,
Soko yogeremuko ku Luganda.
Okay, be happy know that I'm a part of Ekisaakate, right?
Yogera Luganda.
Njize bingi in Ekisaakate. Yeah, people should join Ekisaakate because
Okay. Whoa. Nenga nja kubambawo ebirala byonna byonna ebiddako baganda bange mwekumire ku African Union Television n'owakati Ekisaakate Uganda ndali made in Uganda. Ssaabasajja Kabaka awangaale.